Senator Felag.
Present.
Senator Paolino.
Here.
Senator Acosta.
Present.
Senator Cano.
Here.
Senator Seveny.
Here.
Senator Sosnowski.
Here.
8 members. There is a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. First item we'll take up on our agenda today is going to be Senate Bill 640 by Senator Coleman, an act relating to public finance, Rhode Island Secure Choice Retirement Savings Program Act. Senator Coleman.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the committee for having me tonight. So this is a bill that I've been working with the Treasurer's Office on. I'm really excited about it. It's basically a public option for retirement. So nearly half of Rhode Islanders, that's about 47%, don't have access to retirement savings plans through their employer. And fewer employers are willing or able to offer traditional pensions. And so it's become more common that employees have to establish their own savings plan. But workers are 15 times less likely to save for retirement if they don't have access to like a payroll deduction option that sort of helps them do it automatically. So S640 is designed to sort of fill this gap. It's called the Secure Choice Retirement Savings Program. It's similar to that of a couple of other states, including notably Oregon and Illinois and California all have programs like this. So Secure Choice would create basically a public sort of IRA. All private employees would be able to be enrolled into this IRA-type retirement plan, which the state oversees and manages. So the plan is portable. So if you move jobs, the plan can move with you. Participation is totally voluntary. So any eligible employee can opt in or opt out of the program. They can increase their contribution. They can decrease it at any time. So basically, it's designed to make this as easy as possible, but to give people who don't have benefits packages access to options for saving this way. So there are significant budget and economic impacts of an aging population. Savings is a really important issue, as we know. And so among other reasons, like this legislation is designed to help build economic security, also minimize the wealth gap, and improve economic mobility. So I'm happy to talk further, but that's it in a nutshell.
Wasn't on audio. Thank you, Senator Coleman. Are there any questions or comments for Senator Coleman from members of the committee? Okay.
Yes, so how would the state run this then?
Very good question. So we do have the treasurer here, and I may defer to him on some of the particularities, but basically it costs little less than $1 million, I think, to fund it, but it would be overseen and sort of wrapped into some of the existing pension programs. So it's basically the oversight, which is what would be offered here. And if I may, Mr. Treasurer, bump that question to you for the specifics.
We will. Before we go to the treasurer, though, are there any questions or comments for Senator Coleman?
I've got one, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Seveny.
We saw some of the submitted testimony. There were concerns being raised about the bureaucratic impact on small businesses or whatever they're going to have to do. So maybe when we talk about this, you can get into what exactly does any particular business, say a business with 6 or 7 people who would be required to participate in this. What does that small business actually have to do?
Also a good question, and with the chair's permission, I would also defer to the treasurer on some of the specifics there.
Okay. Well, why don't we do this? Why don't we, before we sort of go into questions there, maybe we'll come back to questions in a second. But Treasurer Magaziner, I do want to welcome you to the committee, and I know you've been working with Senator Coleman on this legislation, and if certainly would like to ask if you'd like to make any remarks broadly, and then probably we can go into some questions if that works for you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman and Senators. Good to see you all again. Can you all hear me okay? Yes?
Yes, we can.
All right. And a particular thank you to Senator Coleman for her work on this legislation. As the Senator noted, the issue that we're trying to tackle here is that nearly half of private sector workers in this country and in Rhode Island have no retirement savings at all. No 401k, no IRA. You know, think of retail workers, fast food workers. They don't have any sort of employer-based retirement savings at all. And so there's a real retirement crisis in this country where, you know, really half of our private sector workers are going to retire with little to no retirement savings at all. You know, the rule of thumb generally is that, you know, retirees should be able to replace 60% of their income with some sort of a retirement fund. Social Security alone only covers about 30% of a person's income on average, so there's a gap there. And as the Senator Coleman mentioned, you know, when workers retire and they have no retirement savings, more often than not, they're going to be relying on public benefits that come at great cost to the state. So the idea behind this program, Secure Choice program, is to ensure that all Rhode Island workers, or at least the vast majority, have some retirement savings when they reach retirement age. As Senator Coleman mentioned, the way that this would work is that all employees at private sector employers with more than 5 employees, so this would apply to those who work at employers with more than 5 employees, would be automatically enrolled into a 401k type program overseen by the state. And there would be a default contribution by the employee of 3%, which the employee could elect to raise or lower at their discretion. It's an opt-out, so the employee can choose not to do this. The employee can say, no, thank you, I don't want to do this, and there's no contribution required. The employee could say, you know what, I want to save more than 3% of my income into a retirement account, so I want to go higher than 3% or down to 2%, or it's up to the employee. There is no employer contribution. It is solely an employee contribution. And to the question about what would the employer be required to do, the answer is nothing. It would be an automatic deduction. It would apply only to those employees who are covered by an automated payroll system like ADP or Paychex. So if you have an employee now, 99% of employees in the state are covered by an automated payroll processing system like Paychex or ADP. Those systems already have automatic deductions for taxes. And so this would just be one more automatic deduction that the payroll processing services would, you know, take out of someone's paycheck if the employee agreed to it and direct it into a retirement savings account. The employer literally has to do nothing. And this is a concept that has been launched and has worked at this point in several other states. Oregon and Illinois have had active secure choice programs for a number of years now. California recently launched theirs a couple of years ago. Connecticut has passed a version of this and is moving forward. And again, it is optional for the employee. There is no cost and no effort to the employer. And it is a way to encourage people to save for retirement and to help make people more self-sufficient and secure in retirement. So maybe I'll pause there, and then I'm happy to take any questions that you may have as a committee.
Thank you so much, Treasurer. Are there questions or comments for the Treasurer from members of the committee?
I don't think the treasurer has answered my question.
Senator Felag?
And why are we getting involved in private industry? Because I know something like Paychex and stuff, they already have that option where they're even doing incentives, I believe, to employers to get involved in that program. So how would the state get involved in something if private industry is already doing that?
Well, what I would say, Senator, is that you know, a significant number of employees are not being covered, you know, through the existing system, right? You know, roughly half of workers, private sector workers, do not have any retirement account connected with their employment. And so again, the employer under this program is not required to do anything. There's no cost. There's no requirement that the employer is not a fiduciary. The employer has no legal liability. The employer does nothing. The employee, it's an opt-out system where the employee would automatically be contributing 3% of their paycheck unless they decide not to. And so it's no requirement for the employer. It's optional for the employee. And I'd say the reason that we're doing it, or that we want to do it, is to address this problem of, half of workers having no retirement plan at all. I would say once again, this would not apply to those who are employed at places of business where there are less than 5 employees, and it would also not apply if the employer already offers something else. So if the employer already offers a 401k or a pension plan or something like that, then this would not apply. It is only for those workplaces where the employer does not offer anything, where the employee would have this option. Does that answer your question, Senator Felag, or is there something else?
Not necessarily, because my issue or my concern is relative to the accounting aspect of it, in terms of is the state now going to hire a Fidelity type
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying.
agency in order to do this?
Yes.
And now these investments going to be in a Roth that doesn't go against the earnings, or is it going to be like 401k type that you take off the earnings, and who's going to account for that?
I see what you're saying. Yeah. So yeah, the way that other states have done it, and the way that I suspect we would do it, is, the state would issue an RFP and hire a financial services provider to actually be the custodian of the program and to actually administer the investments. So, similar to what we do with the state college bound fund or the TIA-CREF plan for state employees, we would go out to bid. We would hire, you mentioned Fidelity. We would hire a financial services provider who would administer the program. It would be a Roth structure, a Roth IRA, essentially, that would allow for that tax treatment that Roths have, and very much like an IRA, the employee would have the ability to select from a menu of different investment options how they would like to invest. We would probably have a default investment option that was a target date fund, but it would be, the state would hire a vendor, but the vendor would actually administer the program.
Thank you, because I was thinking to myself, and I said the only way this could come about would be it'd have to be a Roth type of an investment by the employee if you were not having the employer involved in it. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Senator Felag. Senator Seveny.
Thanks. So just so I'm understanding here, so this program is not going to offer the 401k type of investment vehicle.
Yeah. So under federal tax regulation, under IRS regulation, we are not allowed to have an employer match if it is a universal program like this. That's an IRS rule, which is why this would be an employee contribution only, similar to a Roth IRA, except that it would be an automatic deduction from the paycheck unless the employee opted out of the program.
Yeah, that's kind of too bad. I mean, the 401ks have a good high ceiling on what you can contribute, and I don't think Roth style IRAs really have. I don't know what the limit is now, but isn't it less than?
Yeah, so a typical Roth IRA limit right now is $6,000 a year, and so again, if the IRS becomes more flexible and allows people to go higher, then we could certainly look at allowing that flexibility here as well. But again, this is really meant to be targeted for those employees. Again, the cashier at Dunkin' Donuts, others who have no, retirement plan at all.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks so much, Senator Seveny. Are there additional questions or comments from members of the committee?
Yeah, I guess the other question I would have is that I understand the aspect of targeting the lower income individuals, but those people have that tendency of, once they're deriving their paycheck, they're using it for their rent, their food, all the necessary items that they need to survive. And now you're asking them to contribute after-tax money that I don't know, understand. Can you give me some kind of performance basis of what the other states have done and how receptive individuals have been in those states for these programs?
Yeah, so I'll just emphasize again that an employee could opt out at any time. So we're not forcing anyone to do this. If somebody would prefer not to contribute into the program or to contribute less than the 3%, they can make that change at any time. As far as the statistics on, in Illinois and Oregon and California, what the participation rate has been, we can circle back with that data. My understanding is that most people have chosen not to opt out, that a significant majority have stayed in, but I can get the specific numbers for you and circle back with that for sure.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, just jump in.
Senator Coleman?
Thank you. This is not a bill that's going to, it's not the silver bullet that, fixes low wages, for instance, right? Senator Felag is absolutely right that, working people often have 5 places to put every penny. This is not a bill that fixes that, right? The bill is designed to provide an instrument to make it easier to save. That's what it does, right? And it's part of a package of, different things, including, including the minimum wage package that we passed recently, et cetera, to help improve people's financial stability alone. It's not going to fix it. It is a tool for folks to have at the ready to sort of facilitate their saving goals. That's the intention.
That's well put.
Are there any additional questions from members of the committee? Okay, hearing none. Treasurer, thank you so much for being here this evening, and Senator Coleman, thank you for being here. We do have one individual signed up to testify in support. Is Matthew Netto from AARP, and also a Cumberland constituent. Matthew, welcome to Senate Finance.
Hello, Chairman. Thank you very much.
Please.
Yep.
No, please proceed.
Go ahead. Sorry. Oh, thank you. My name is Matthew Netto. I am the Director of Advocacy for AARP Rhode Island. And on behalf of our over 132,000 members in Rhode Island, we are in strong support of Senate Bill 640, the Rhode Island Secure Choice Retirement Savings Program. As you know, AARP is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to helping people ages 50 and older to improve their quality of life as they age. In doing so, we not only focus on those nearing and currently in retirement, but those who are at all stages of their careers and will retire in the future. Rhode Island, like many other states, is facing a very bad retirement issue in the near future. The average Social Security benefit is just shy of $20,000 a year, while on average, older families in Rhode Island spend about $24,000 a year on food, utilities, and health care alone. Social Security was never intended to be the person's sole source of income in retirement. This also, what it will do at this rate is 1 out of every 2 middle-class retirees will be unable to afford their basic needs in retirement, things like medicine, utilities, rent. This will cost taxpayers down the line in social services. If we take action today, we can reverse this, and that is what Senate Bill 640 seeks to do. As mentioned earlier, nearly 47% of Rhode Islanders don't have access to retirement savings plans through their employer. With fewer employers willing or able to offer traditional pensions, it has fallen more and more to employees to establish their own retirement savings plans. As also mentioned, workers are 15 times more likely to save for retirement if they have access to a payroll deduction savings plan through their employers, and 20 times more likely if that savings is automatically withdrawn. In addition, certain groups of people are disproportionately impacted by the lack of access to retirement plans. The higher rate of part-time employment among women is a large factor in their low eligibility rates for employer-sponsored retirement plans, as they may not work enough hours to be covered by their employer's plans. These programs, such as laid out in Senate Bill 640, are necessary necessary to reach a huge and underdeserved population. As mentioned, there are many other states that are working on this type of legislation, especially this year, as I've seen with my colleagues across the country. Those highlighted so far have been Oregon, Illinois, and California. As of today, 13 states have enacted new programs for private sector workers, and more states are well positioned to continue this work across the country. Oregon was the first state. It was their program's called Oregon Saves. It was the first in the nation of its type, and it was followed closely by Illinois and California. Now, the stat I don't have it drilled down to specific states, but between those three states, there is more than $220 million in assets under management, with nearly 320,000 funded accounts. It is important to note that many of these workers are first-time savers who otherwise would not have had access to a payroll deduction retirement savings option. The success seen in already existing programs is a great example of how these programs can really make a difference for people trying to save their own money for retirement, and in the end, save Rhode Island taxpayer dollars as well. So in conclusion, we recognize the enormously positive impacts of this type of legislation and the program could have on the state of Rhode Island and its taxpayers. We are fully supportive of the passage and implementation of this bill, and we urge you to support Senate Bill 640. Thank you for hearing my testimony today and for your consideration, and I hope you have a good evening.
Thank you so much, Matthew, for your testimony. Are there any questions or comments from members of the committee? Okay. Hearing none. Thank you so much, Matthew.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. That does conclude our testimony on Senate Bill 640. And
motion to hold.
Senator Palmer makes a motion to hold, second by Senator 70. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Chairman Pearson.
Yes.
Senator DePalma.
Yes.
Senator Felag.
Yes.
Senator Paolino.
Yes.
Senator Acosta.
Yes.
Senator Cano.
Yes.
Senator 70.
Yes.
Senator Sosnowski.
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. We will. Senator Palmer.
Mr. Chairman, I think we already lost her. I was going to say good luck to Senator Coleman tonight, and I think the Secretary as well on the housing segment with the governor tonight, right?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yep. I think Senator Coleman already left us, so it'll be an abstention. Sorry.
Senator Coleman will be one of our lead speakers. We start 6:45, and be very glad to do both tonight.
Yeah. Chairman, back to you. Sorry about that.
Thank you so much, Senator Palmer. Next, we will turn to House Bill 6122, aka the budget. We're going to be hearing this evening from the Executive Office of Commerce for fiscal 21 supplemental and fiscal 22 budgets. Also, Articles 9, Sections 2 through 16 related to economic development. Joe, I know you are here from the Budget Office, and several other members of the administration are here. So I will turn it over to you to start and introduce the members of the administration that are here this evening.
Thank you very much, Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Joe Cadiga, Deputy Budget Officer, and I'd like to introduce some of the members of the administration who are here tonight to testify on the Executive Office of Commerce budget, but also some portions of Article 9, which primarily extend sunset dates related to some economic development programs. We have Secretary Stephen Pryor, Secretary of Commerce. Hannah Moore, Chief of Staff of the Executive Office of Commerce, Jesse Saglio, the President of the Commerce Corporation, and I know that Secretary Pryor has the engagement that the Senator just mentioned tonight, so I will pass off directly to him.
Thank you so much, Joe. Secretary, welcome to Senate Finance.
Thank you, Chairman Pearson. Always a pleasure. Thank you for the leadership that this committee exercises, and honorable members of the committee, glad to address you once again. You should have the presentation that we have sent you. I will address it. Anyone on the committee not in possession of the presentation? Excellent. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, you see the agenda slide on page 2. I'm going to talk to you about the state of the recovery very quickly, and then I'm going to go right in on the budget items, inclusive of the sunset extension items that were referenced, Article 9 items, the toolbox, which we aim to fill with tools that will help to repair and revitalize Rhode Island's economy, with a big emphasis on small businesses and an explanation on all points. There are appendices that cover budget items that I may not explicitly address, and we welcome questions on all of the above, of course, at the chairman's discretion. Next page.
Excuse me, do we have a presentation, or are we going to look at our phones to try to follow along here?
Does someone want to address that?
Mr. Chairman, usually we have like a slide presentation.
If someone would like me to put up the slides, I'm happy to do so.
Yeah, please do. It's easier to follow than trying to look at our phones and look at someone else and try to.
Absolutely, Senator Felag, we're happy to.
Thank you.
Let's see, do you see the slides?
Yes, perfect. Cover sheet, Hannah. Now go to the agenda and on to continuing the recovery. There's the agenda. Perfect. So very briefly, but proudly, I want to express this part. Moody's, on a weekly basis, ranks the states in the United States as to the pace of their recovery following the onset of COVID-19. I'm proud to report to you that Rhode Island is number 14 in the United States for its rate of recovery, number 1 in the Northeast. It's called the Back to Normal Index. According to Moody's, we're at 93% of our pre-existing economic activity. That is to say, pre-COVID to now, we're at 93%. And I'll note for you, Connecticut's 34th in the country when we're 14th. Massachusetts is 47th. And New York is 50th. Just to give you a feel, all the New England and Northeastern states are beneath us. So we're not a laggard emerging from this COVID-sparked recession. We are, in fact, a leader in our region, but we're not resting on laurels. The reality is too many small businesses and too many businesses in general are still struggling, and many of our residents are indeed struggling. So we have a lot of work to do, but we're pleased that we are leading the way. We've had the 12th largest drop in unemployment in the United States. When you go from April 2020, the beginning of the COVID recession, through to the most recent unemployment data, and we're doing better than some of our neighbors on unemployment as well. Key neighbors, Connecticut, New York, we are in fact setting the pace for our region. We need to continue to do so. We know that in recessions of the past, we have slipped into the back and we've been behind and indeed a laggard. We need to continuously invest and stimulate the economy to ensure that we remain in this leadership position. So page 4, please. What Governor McKee's budget proposes to do is to invest in such stimulus-related activities in our economy with a heavy focus on small businesses. So with the pre-existing CARES Act money, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, we have recaptured dollars that were not spent. That's the original round of stimulus prior to the Biden administration. And we have channeled it into a new small business grant program. It's more than up and running. It's fully operational and starting to make payments. The $5,000 per business program, which is budgeted for, which is why I'm addressing it, is in receipt of over 5,000 applications, and there are 2,400 plus applications that are en route to payment, meaning that signatures are occurring on agreements, DocuSign signatures, and payments are in fact being mailed out. We're very pleased with this. Obviously, with any such program, you need to prevent fraud, so there are rigorous standards for making payments, but we're pleased with the pace of them. Because of the timing tonight, I want to make sure I keep moving. Of course, we'll answer questions on these points. More on small business, though, on the next slide if we can. So the pre-existing small business program, i.e. the program that was established within the last half dozen years, but of course preceding COVID, is the Small Business Assistance Program, or SBAP. That's the state's first, in memory, perhaps first ever, state-financed small business loan program. We're very proud of the distinction that we have created this program. Over 160 loans have been made to date, and approximately 51% of them, a majority of them, to minority-owned and women-owned businesses, businesses that traditionally have had trouble accessing capital in Rhode Island, and for that matter in the country. We're proposing $1 million infusion into this program that was originally capitalized with $5 million and has periodically been recapitalized with modest amounts, and we ask that you extend the program sunset. There's no time when we've needed this program more than now. Next. Just waiting for the next slide to come up here. The Small Business Development Fund. The General Assembly initiated the creation of this program. As you will recall, this program, SBDF, provides for access to capital through a tax credit against the insurance tax and through a method under which certain categories of lenders, some of them are referred to as CAPCOs, are capable of carrying out lending transactions. There was a moment in time, given the implementation of this program, where Commerce made the determination that given the COVID crisis, we needed to ensure that our most vulnerable businesses, i.e. COVID impacted businesses, were prioritized in this program. And that process occurred just as we were in the larger process of implementing the program. So we, under Jesse Saglio's leadership, imposed criteria, including the fact that in the first approved lender's case, $15 million of $20 million approved for purposes of deployment must go to COVID impacted businesses. So that is happening right now. The first applicant lender, Enhanced Capital, was approved based upon those COVID era conditions. They are in the process of receiving applications now and fully capitalizing their funds with private funding, as was anticipated in your legislation. In Article 9, we propose to make certain surgical changes to the legislation so that we arrive at permanent improvements to the program based upon our experience to date. We ask for eligibility as to lenders, that is to say, partners like Enhanced Capital, future lenders, that go beyond the more narrow category of applicant to include community development financial institutions, or CDFIs, to include other community lenders, so that we can increase the applicant pool and in fact approve more lenders. We want to strengthen the selection process. We want to expand the array of tax streams against which the tax credit can be applied, which will also enable more lending institutions that are community-based to apply and avail themselves of this particular mechanism to make loans. There's more to it, but you can see what we're looking for is enabling more Rhode Island-based community lenders to be part of the process and still maintaining a rigorous selection process. Next. Another of the great tools in the toolbox for small businesses is Innovation Vouchers, and it's another of those programs we've never needed more. We need more than ever. This program enables us to offer up to $50,000 per business. On the one hand, in the course of in the universe of all businesses, If they partner with a university or a medical center as a research partner to carry out the work, we reimburse for up to $50,000 worth of R&D conducted by those institutions. It should be noted that our biggest plurality of the vouchers given to date, 93 vouchers, in excess of 30, I think it's 32, are at URI. Our flagship state university is really getting in on the act, and more than ever helping small businesses figure out the next step for a product or service and putting it into the market. And we've seen over 20 patents and licenses result. I said on the one hand, that's the entire universe. On the other hand, if you're a manufacturer, you can in fact use this mechanism to do internal R&D, recognizing that manufacturers have great need, and sometimes they don't need a research partner, they can do it in-house, and we've had over 20 of those. So very successful program, and we propose recapitalizing it in this budget with $1 million for what's called the Innovation Initiative, which also contains what we call the Network Matching Grant Program. So those two programs will be capitalized. Next. A bit more, I don't want to go into too much depth on any one point, but we continue to seek support for our Supply RI program, $300,000. That's the program that is absolutely invaluable in that it supports small businesses, including minority-owned and women-owned businesses, in connecting to large purchases of goods and services right here in Rhode Island. Corporations, hospitals, universities do a lot of purchasing. We want to make sure our small businesses on a sustainable basis get access to those procurements. So that's what Supply RI is all about. We continue to partner with Chafee at Bryant on doing international trade, recruiting, foreign direct investment. Some terrific success stories there. Polaris, the manufacturing extension partnership, which does a phenomenal job. Continued funding there. $476,000 on the one hand, $350,000 on the other. Happy to get into any and all of these. We want to make sure to display as many budget items as we could, just to help you focus on how these are clustered substantively, and then answer any questions on the budget. Next. So I want to now talk about some of our even larger scale programs for companies of every size. The Qualified Jobs Program is the program that helps to repledge to companies generating jobs in Rhode Island, either through growth of existing companies or through new companies arriving. It repledges the personal income taxes generated by those jobs. A reminder, there are safeguards built into this program. The job must exist for a year and the job must be generating taxes. Taxes must be paid to Rhode Island in the form of personal income taxes before any payment is made to the company. There's no hypothetical job that will ever result in a payment under this program. Impossible. We've had over 30 companies avail themselves of this, expanding or landing here. We are over a 10-year period predicting through our third-party economic analysis firm that the net state revenue that will return to the state, net of the incentives, is over $86 million. $86 million to the positive for Rhode Island over the next 10 years. The GDP increase is projected to be, the annual GDP increase is $475 million annually. So that's this Qualified Jobs Program. The reason I mentioned it, it is in fact requested for a sunset extension in Article 9. This is not a budgeted for item since it pledges taxes back, but it is in Article 9 for that purpose. Next page. The Rebuild Rhode Island Tax Credit Program, it'll appear momentarily. That's the brick and mortar incentive program. We think this program is also more important than ever. Why? Because we always invest in a project that is otherwise capitalized with private or federal sources providing that capitalization. We always leverage private or federal capital in a brick and mortar project that we invest in using the Rebuild Rhode Island Tax Credit Program. Typically, we invest up to 20% of project costs. That's a typical up to. We've done over 50 projects supporting over 10,000 construction jobs, leveraging nearly $3 billion of investment in the course of this program. The 10-year net revenue back to Rhode Island is nearing $100 million, $98 million. The annual, that's net of the incentives. We expect that revenue back in state revenue flow after you account for the incentives paid out, and the annual GDP increase is $822 million annually. Again, why is this more important now than ever? Because we want to leverage future federal infrastructure dollars where a match is required or where the total project cost cannot be covered absent the filling of a gap. At no time has this tool been better positioned. It's optimally positioned now to help us leverage federal funding that we expect to see if Congress passes any version of an infrastructure plan, including what they're calling the American Jobs Plan, President Biden's proposed infrastructure program. Next. Talent. One of the things I know that is supremely on Chairman Pearson's mind as a co-sponsor of the original bill for the Wavemaker program, and I know all of you think about every day, is talent. How do we ensure that we support our businesses, small businesses, medium-sized and large, seeking skilled professionals right here in Rhode Island? And how do we make sure that our young professionals who are going to school here or go off to college or university elsewhere stay here or return home here because there are jobs that they want to pursue, but also that they can afford to take in that for the quality of life they seek, for the home they want to purchase, for the loans that they need to repay, they're able to afford to live right here in Rhode Island. This is a way in which, with big thanks to Chairman Pearson, they are able to undertake that. We repay a portion, sometimes all of, the student loans that individuals in STEM and design fields, STEAM fields, need to pay on an annual basis. We propose an infusion of dollars into this program, $1.6 million for a cadre of Wavemaker Fellows, 2 years of payments through that 1.6, and we ask for some clarifications and improvements in the program. For example, the program was originally conceived innocently, just with the right idea in mind, focused on what tax withholdings were involved. We want to let entrepreneurs be involved where they may not have withholdings based upon the way in which they file taxes. We want to streamline administrative processes, not focus on a complex set of what they pay in their loans versus what they owe, but focus narrowly on what they've paid in their loans. There's a variety of cleanup moves that are not consequential and should not have significant budget impact at all, but will help the program function even better. And we want to see the sunset extension occur on this program as well. With that, those are the primary programs I wanted to focus upon. In some of the slides that I've gone through in rapid form and in the appendix to this presentation, there are other budget items, of course, and we welcome questions on any of the above. Chairman Pearson, with your permission, I'll close there and turn it back to you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Secretary. I'm going to first go to Senator Khanna.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Secretary, for the presentation. As always, very detailed, so that's great. I wanted to first say thank you for sharing the data about the minority business enterprise, women business enterprise. You know, since you come in front of the committee and I've been consistent asking about that. So I really appreciate it. With that in mind, I wanted to ask another thing that I think I brought up before while we were in the pandemic to you, and it was a gap in our programs for small businesses that do have IT numbers, the ITIN number that pay taxes to the state, that are active and that are very valuable members of our small business community that weren't able to access some of the federal programs, which I was happy that at least the hospitality industry now with the new program that has come up by the federal government, which is the revitalization fund, they are eligible and able to apply for that. So when it comes to state funds, have we provided any support to this bucket of small businesses? And if so, would you be able to share with us the data of how many of these businesses have been able to get any of those loans or programs that have been able to qualify for?
Yes, we would be happy to follow up with you, Senator Kano, with those data. I will tell you that while there may be federal prohibitions on some subcategories of business, under our state program, the Small Business Assistance Program and the SBDF, the Small Business Development Fund, no such prohibition should or does exist. So we'll get you those data.
That is great, and we'll continue to work together if I could be of any help to support and
You certainly
close
are,
that gap.
always.
So that is very important. The second question I do have is in regards to some of the businesses that have been affected through the pandemic that actually were in the process of opening up a business in January of 2020 in that area. January 2020, they incorporated, let's put this example. I have actually a constituent that is under this category. She started planning for opening the business in January 2020. She couldn't open actually until June of 2020 after some of the restrictions were lifted, but it's still all of those 6 months she was incur a lot of the expenses, and she wasn't able to get any income. Have you thought of Commerce Right thought about supporting some of these businesses that opened after the pandemic started, and just supporting with loans, with like even grants? Any thought about that? Just support
yes.
those businesses?
We most definitely have thought about it. We've interviewed businesses that started post-pandemic, and we adapted our Restore Rhode Island grant program to enable expenses incurred by such new businesses, in many cases, to be eligible for the earlier version of our grant program using CARES Act. Under Governor McKee, we prioritized newer businesses because they've been left out of some federal aid programs, and again made sure that they could be eligible by demonstrating that they had expenses associated with COVID operations, and therefore they're in the applicant pool and are getting funded. Hannah Moore, Chief of Staff for Commerce, has been magnificent in helping us orchestrate these loan programs, these grant programs, and really coordinating this latest relief grant program under Governor McKee. Do you want to say anything more on new businesses, Hannah?
No, thanks, Secretary. And exactly as you described, we worked really hard to try to find a way to get newer businesses into this most recent program. So as long as you had started before the beginning of the year, we were able to get you through this new program. So I'm actually trying to figure out if we can get some stats even on how many of those applied, because they were in many instances eligible for PPP, for example, which has been one of the main sources of funding. So it's a great.
So that's great to hear, Hannah and Secretary. I would say that you're right. There were a lot of these business owners couldn't qualify for any federal PPP loans or anything like that. And my last question, just because I know you have to go, but it is important. While we talk about, trying to reestablish, and jumpstart the economy again, right? You're supporting all of these businesses that are existing, and you talk a lot about, supporting new businesses that have some innovation part of it. What about the entrepreneurs that want to open business, like post-pandemic, right? Out of crisis, sometimes there is opportunity. And then so all of these people that had plans and want to open, is there any assistance for startup entrepreneurships, entrepreneurs that want to open a business after any period of time that could be included in the budget? Have you thought about it?
Big time. No, we have an enormous amount of support for startups. I should note, by the way, every year for the past 5+ years, we've seen an increase in the number of startups in Rhode Island as defined by business starts registered with the Secretary of State's Office of Rhode Island. So even during 2020, the COVID recession year, we saw a record number of new businesses established in Rhode Island. So that's number one. Number two, for supports for entrepreneurship, yes, we have among the supports innovation vouchers. If a small business wants to partner with URI, with RISD, with Johnson & Wales to get support on the product or service that they're innovating with. We have these loans, the Small Business Assistance Program, for example, which offer Community lenders willing to offer typically more flexible terms and take greater risk for entrepreneurs. It's exactly what it's intended for and why we seek an additional $1 million in a sunset extension. We also have something called, this is not necessary in terms of state funding, but you should know that at the Wexford Innovation Building, inside of the RI Hub, the Rhode Island Hub, that was funded through a previous bond, the Innovation Bond, we have something called Venture Mentoring Services, VMS, which is a successful model that was done elsewhere in the country. And what it amounts to is successful entrepreneurs who are now, experienced small business people. They mentor newcomers. So we have all of those and more. I'm not even doing justice to the topic, but we have a lot for entrepreneurs.
That's great to hear. And would the minority entrepreneurship grants that you mentioned would include the startups for any category of businesses, or it only has to be tied up to innovation? So in a way to be more clear, if a person wants to open an ice cream shop, I'm just putting an example, would that person be able to access these funds as an entrepreneur or as a minority in the minority entrepreneurship grants? And would it be only grants, would it be only loans, or would it also include some grants?
So first of all, the Small Business Assistance Program is a loan program. It is not focused exclusively, not even focused on what you might consider to be innovation. We have a gym that is a startup gym. We have a goat cheese, a cheese maker. We have, restaurants, every manner of Rhode Island business with Rhode Island born and bred, Rhode Island resident owners of every description. So that's the one that's 51% minority and women-owned businesses. So completely available to all manner of startups. And our relief grants are for any business, even if they're new, that started. So that's loans and grants. But my basic point would be for those who are out there and listening to this hearing, if you're a business owner, or if you want to be one and you're thinking about it, if you're a minority-owned business owner, or if you are a Black or Latino entrepreneur aiming to start a business, reach out to us. Because the bottom line is I'm outlining some of what we can do, but often what we do is we're able to patch together specific forms of assistance for the specific scenario.
Great. Thank you so much, Secretary. Thank you also to Hannah, and Chairman. I am all set for now, so thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Senator Cano. Senator Acosta?
I'm good. I have my hands up. My bad.
Okay. Questions from the committee?
Senator Feeling.
Senator Feeling.
Thank you. One of the issues that are encountered relative to like the PPP, which was given out to just about anybody who applied, and it really had a negative effect on those businesses that were really devastated when they found out that businesses that were doing well during the pandemic were also receiving the PPP. So I credit the Commerce Department in terms of establishing criteria for the Restore Rhode Island and the upcoming loan program that you have for $5,000 to establish that it's those industries that really need it. And it really showed the importance of reaching out to small business, and the fact that a lot of small businesses don't have the let's say the accounting skills or other skills necessary to apply for these loans. And, it requires some patience on your behalf to ensure that these people get these loans. The only thing about them is that they are taxable, correct, from a federal and a state perspective, right?
Yes. Absent a change in federal policy, CARES Act dollars are taxed. We'll see about future stimulus dollars and how that works.
Okay. And as far as your loan programs are concerned, do you go through a commercial lender, or how does that work in terms of the rates and other rates below what the industry that they may apply for?
Senator, we do go through private and nonprofit sector lenders for the SBAP program. And we have 7 lenders: Business Development Company of Rhode Island, Southeastern Economic Development Corporation, Business Development Capital Community Investment Corp., Social Enterprise Greenhouse, CWE, the Rhode Island Black Business Association. All of them are based here or have operations here, and they are community-based lenders. The majority of them are nonprofit lenders, so they offer flexible terms. So that's who they are.
And a lot of times in the past, we've always gone for the big fish, let's put it that way, rather than keeping things homeward in terms of our small businesses. And one of the things that I was kind of happy to hear about was these partnerships with entrepreneurs based with colleges and things of that nature, and the fact that some of these now are garnering licenses and those kinds of federal certificates and stuff. Can you share with us what type of businesses those are? Is it little widgets they're producing, or is it some sort of massive medicine type things?
I'm happy to, Senator. I'll give you a few examples. What you're referring to is the innovation vouchers, which are those small doses of dollars that we give to, for example, URI, any of the universities or medical centers that may be partnering up. So we've got a platform, Vitae Industries. In the midst of this health crisis, a good example, Vitae Industries got voucher funding to develop a new platform, and it lets health professionals rapidly make personalized prescriptions for their patients, like at the point of care. It's a new technology that they developed. You know, we gave them $25,000, and frankly, they're saving lives. Just one of those beautiful things. We've got others that are in the COVID domain. Inventilator LLC got nearly $50,000, close to the max. Allows the company to access chest test a lung simulator at URI's pharmacy school to validate circuits for its novel non-invasive ventilator technology. Now, I'm not going to tell you that I'm an expert in ventilators, but what I will tell you is, as you will recall well, Senator, if you like,
yeah,
there was never a moment in time where ventilators were more crucial, and we enabled one of our own entrepreneurial ventures right here in Rhode Island, a small business, to participate. Is that helpful?
Yeah, those are the types of things that I was looking for. And in terms of, when we have our business schools, whether they be at Bryant or Providence College or URI, we try to stress this entrepreneurial spirit. And I want to make sure that those individuals that have that spirit have some sort of capital access to them, so that they can fulfill their dreams and go forward. So thank you.
Definitely. And I'll tell you, one of the heartening things about it is I hear this frequently when we meet with the business, meet with the university partner at URI, at Roger Williams, wherever it may be. We hear, I knew that I could get interns from, I knew I could hire from, fill in the blank, URI. I just didn't think about the fact that there were faculty and other researchers who could help my business. It's not that they weren't there, for God's sake. URI, with its globally renowned ocean sciences and its phenomenally successful pharmacy school, it just breaks the barrier, and with a little bit of money helps to seed the way. So it's really, really encouraging.
Yeah, those were type of things that, I want to go back maybe 15, almost 20 years ago when I was a newly elected senator, and we ended up having a commission put together to look at ways that commerce could expand themselves. And these were some of the things that we had pointed out, these types of things. And so I'm glad to see that they're finally coming off the shelf, as it is, to
Yes, sir.
come to fruition, because the other aspect was the importance of the defense industry. And so with this Wave Maker program and the STEM program, we're ensuring that we have a number of engineers and mathematicians and those kinds of individuals that would stay in our state and provide a lucrative, not a lucrative, but at least a good profession for those individuals. And the last thing I'm looking at is, do we have any such programs that we're able to help industries in securing federal contracts? That's always been
Yes, we do.
big thing of mine.
Yes, we have a program called PTAC, as distinct from our educational program called PTech, which exclusively focuses on helping secure federal contracts. Jesse Saglio, our president of the Commerce Corp, is right here. Jesse, do you want to speak to, in a couple sentences, if you don't mind, what
sure.
PTAC does?
Yeah, so the PTAC group is a series of business advisors that specialize, as Stefan mentioned, in helping businesses navigate, especially the government procurement area, but also they work with helping businesses through state and local governments. There's not surprisingly a heavy DoD focus and adjacencies, but they are specialists and highly knowledgeable in all things government procurement. They literally help hundreds of companies and hundreds of millions of dollars, of revenue have been generated as a result of the work they've done just over the last couple of years that I've been around. Phenomenally successful, phenomenally talented group, and folks that have products or services that may intersect with government activity. We would urge to reach out to our PTAC group and get involved with them.
Yeah, thank you. Because one of the aspects was, I know at one time there was a manufacturing company that made flashlights, and for instance, and the Army was looking for flashlights, but the individual didn't know how to go about trying to get involved in a federal contract to secure those things for the government. And that's why a lot of these industries don't have that access. So with this organization, I hope they'd be able to bridge that gap to allow those manufacturing companies to secure some federal contracts.
Absolutely, Senator.
Very important.
Thank you, Senator Felag. Mr. Secretary, one of the things I know we talked about early in January was related to the housing money that were received, about $200 million. I know that Commerce Rhode Island Housing has been working on that program. Could you just give a brief update as to what we've seen as far as a level of demand for that program, how much money we've had out the door, and trends that we see on that program?
Sure. With your permission, Chairman, Hannah Moore is the best position to give a quick sketch, and we can follow up with more data. But I'd like, for the latest and greatest info preliminary, to ask Hannah if she wouldn't mind offering us a few sentences on that.
Sure.
I'd be happy to. And Chair, if you don't mind, we'd love to follow up with even more information after today. The program is accepting applications currently through Rhode Island Housing, and there have been a number of challenges with these programs around the country, and we're glad that they are currently accepting applications. You can go to Rhode Island Housing's website, actually. If you go to rhodeislandhousing.com, there's actually, it shows up right when you hit the page, Rent Relief RI, and people can go there to apply, and we'll follow up afterwards with some additional information about how things are going and the pace of the funding flowing so far.
Thank you, Hannah. Yeah, that'd be great. We'd love to know. I think just something I think we need to be keeping a really close eye on and doing as much as we can. If my memory is correct, I think the feds can start clawing back some of that as early as September. And so I want to make sure that we're maximizing it as best we can and doing everything we can to promote it. So would love to, get, for whatever the update is today, but I think if it's possible to get some sort of a periodic update, just automatic to the committee, I think it would just be helpful for all of us.
Makes sense.
Mr. Secretary, also a couple others on small business. I know there's a $30 million line that was within the budget, and I think my notes here have there was about $20 million set aside for grants, about $2.5 million for technical assistance, and about 7.5 million still sort of unidentified. And I know there was some discussion around either increasing the size of the grants under that program or otherwise doing other. Any update as to the thoughts from the administration on
Yes.
what that would be proposed to be used for?
We will need to dip into those additional funds for the purpose of funding eligible applicants in the pool of 5,000 plus applicants, not dollars.
Yep.
In this instance, to ensure that we can fund all who are eligible. So there will be overflow beyond the 20 into the 30. It was intended for that purpose, to have that flexibility. We will not exceed the 30. In determining the precise number, we need to actually sift through and determine approved applicants. So we're in the process of doing that. You have to sift out fraud. You have to determine eligibility in accordance with the very few but still important criteria. So we're doing that. So I won't be able to give you a precise answer only for that reason.
Yeah.
If there is excess, even after the 2.5 is excluded and the overflow is excluded, one possible focus for those funds would be for the governor's proposed vouchers or coupons for the purchase of goods at Rhode Island small businesses. The idea of a consumer stimulus program that would enable Rhode Islanders to, for example, have a $25 electronic gift certificate for use on one of our shop local websites or at brick and mortar stores. We're working on those possibilities, but obviously this is a draft idea in that we don't know if we have dollars left as of yet.
Okay. I think, could we ask that once we know what that total excess amount is after going through the grant applications, you let us know what the variance is?
Our pleasure.
And then
Yes.
Joe, I know this came up in the OMB and DOA hearing. I think just on these sorts of items when there's maybe excess or other changes, if you could just mark this one down, and it goes to a conversation I had with Director Thorson yesterday. Just want to get to the cadence of what the process is going to be as we return to more of a normal state here of proposal appropriation. And this is one that we'll want to keep an eye on as well.
Sure, Chairman, we can make sure that we keep an eye on that and keep up with a pattern of regular updates for the committee.
Thank you. And then, Mr. Secretary, on the Wavemaker program, as you know, I'm a big cheerleader for it. And last year in Governor Armando's budget, she had included a provision to expand the program for teachers. The Governor McKee did not also propose that in this budget. Any particular reason on behalf of the administration to why that wasn't re-proposed?
Purely budget constraints. Purely budget constraints in a very tight budget. So that was the reason.
Okay. And then on the Air Service Development Fund, I know that obviously this has been an area that we've probably lost a lot of momentum just at TF Green, given the nature of the last year plus now. In this period where air travel came down. Can you maybe just give your view on where do we go from here, and how do we sort of get back probably some momentum we lost because of COVID at the airport, and how do we get back on a growth trajectory that I think is important to all of us?
Agreed. Even through the pandemic, our CEO at the Airport Corporation, Iftikhar Ahmed, and the leadership team at the airport have been in discussions with airlines in anticipation of this moment where the world would open up again. So no determinations yet and no announcements tonight, of course. But the business development effort, i.e. conversations and potential collaborations, have been emerging throughout the pandemic period. And we hope that we will see increases in service and even potentially new arrival airlines in the coming months and years. So I'm encouraged. I think that with Rhode Island TF Green International Airport having such a strong track record of passenger friendliness, being ranked high nationally, armed with a new name and with the benefit of this quiet period where conversations and negotiations have been occurring, I think we will see a renewed period of strength coming out of this. As to whether it'll be months or years, I couldn't predict yet, but I am optimistic.
Okay. And then I think one of the things, obviously, I know that throughout the pandemic, the Commerce Department's been involved in working with Governor Raimondo and now Governor McKee on executive orders, particularly related to, business and reopening and, not only restrictions, but also trying to find things that we could do to allow them to operate outdoors more, to do takeout for not only food, but also, alcoholic beverage, et cetera. With us getting to this, May 28th period, and I know probably we're all also excited about the CDC guidance that came out today. I'm fully vaccinated, by the way, so I'd like to take my mask and throw it out, but I'll keep it a little while longer. But I think we've got a series of executive orders in the books that make sense to naturally expire as the emergency period sort of comes to a close here. But could you maybe touch on, or if this is something that maybe we should ask you to begin thinking about, which is, what would be some proposals of things that maybe we put them in place because of an emergency, but maybe they are helping the restaurant and hospitality industry, and maybe they are helping other businesses that have been impacted, and we shouldn't let some of those things expire as the emergency expires, but rather get them into statute. Could you talk a little bit about any work that the administration's done or can or will do related to making some proposals to the legislature around likely permanently altering statutes as some of those executive orders lapse?
Yes, happy to. And Chairman, I would say the premier example of a form of flexibility we'd like to see occur on a longer term basis is for restaurants and for other establishments that have been permitted sidewalk uses, street-based parking space uses, and other outdoor uses during the outdoor seasons, to have the flexibility to expand in those ways, so long as safety can be maintained. In this case, I mean traffic safety and pedestrian safety. So long as those things can be maintained, we'd like to see, in partnership with municipalities, at their discretion, with their leadership and opt-in, see some of that flexibility continue to exist. We've had so many points of feedback from small businesses that have expanded their capacity by going outdoors. We, of course, funded that activity through the Take It Outside initiative, which was enormously successful. We used federal funds for outdoor tables, outdoor lighting, outdoor lamps, and heaters. And for that matter, sweaters given out by the Restaurant Association, the Hospitality Association, with big thanks to Dale Venturini. So we'd like to see that occur on a longer term basis. I think now that cities and towns have gotten used to the idea that, bollards can be utilized, fencing can be utilized, personnel can be utilized to keep people safe, this might be a terrific attraction to some of our smallest businesses and add vitality to our main streets across Rhode Island. So we'd like to see that occur. One of the things that we've done as a preliminary move, Chairman, is that in our guidance, COVID guidance, we permit limitless capacity outdoors. Meaning when we say things like, right now, until May 28th, we've expanded to 80% capacity and 3 feet table spacing or 3 feet spacing in general in Rhode Island. That's our current rule. We'll go to 100% capacity by May 28th. Even in this interim period, that capacity 80% does not apply outdoors. You can have as much space as is permitted by your municipality. As a way to show the cities and towns of our state, we embrace your local initiative to create capacity outdoors. We'd like to continue working with the League of Cities and Towns and with individual municipalities to do more of that.
So I guess my question would be statutorily, right? We're racing towards May 28th, right? And it takes time for us to get a bill in, hear it, introduce it, pass it, et cetera. Is it something that the administration is preparing to submit perhaps a package of statutory changes to the legislature to say, hey, here are the things that we had as executive orders that we would recommend that you continue as a permanent change statutorily?
As of now, there's fewer of those than there are measures like I just described that may require collaboration and partnership. But having said that, Chairman, there are some potential categories, and we'd love to follow up with you and think about those.
Okay. All right, Senator Palmer.
Just a comment, Secretary, thank you for being here and thank you for your next thing you're going to do in a few minutes. But as you think about Rhode Island moving forward with the Act on Climate 2030 or 2021, or goals for 2030, 2020, I'm losing track of dates these days, 2030, 2050, 2035. I'd ask that we think about how we invest in we're doing some in the green-blue economy. I know we're doing some of the blue economy, but we should be thinking more about that. As at the end of the day, how we benefit from it, how the country will benefit from it. If we think about energy, if we think about energy storage, we think about batteries. It's an area that's ripe. That's not going to continue to. It's not going to go away. It's
Most
like
definitely.
the devices on the internet. They're not going to go away. Battery storage will continue to be there. If there's ways we look at that, I'm not saying that, but as commerce moves forward, let's figure out our strategy for really hitting a home run on the green economy. So thank you, and
Most definitely. Thank you. In our speaking of the sessions we're undertaking, such as tonight's, which will begin publicly at 7 p.m. on housing, our first session last week in Governor McKee's 2030 planning process being conducted in collaboration with Senate President Ruggiero and Speaker Shekarchi. The focus was on the economy as a whole, and our lead presenter spoke to the state of the national economy and talked about two areas of focus that, in his view, should be, in fact, concentration points and would be promising. One of them was renewable energy and the blue economy, and the other was bioscience, given the overheated nature of the Boston and Cambridge bioscience economy. So right with you on item one.
thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from members of the committee? Okay. Hearing none, Mr. Secretary, thank you so much. The only sort of one of the follow-ups that I would just put a bit more of a time point to it would be sort of the piece that I mentioned around some of the executive orders. If there's thoughts from the administration around that, I think, again, May 28th is rapidly racing towards us, and I think that likely makes and marks the likely end of this emergency period, and we certainly wouldn't want to have any adverse impact on businesses for things that have been helping them through this period. So that'd be the one thing that I just asked for us to move a little bit quickly on, and I know that we want to look forward to working with you on the rest of the follow-ups as well.
Thank you, Chairman. Likewise.
All right. With that, we did have one individual signed up to testify in support. It was Alicia McIntosh in support of Article 9, Sections 2 through 16, but we were not able to reach that individual. And so we will now move on to several pieces of legislation that are before us. The first is Senate Bill 763 by Senator Palmer, an act relating to taxation, estate and transfer taxes.
Thank you again, Chairman and Committee. Take care.
Mr.
Thank
Secretary.
you.
Liability and computation, Senator Palmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Many of us will remember when the state inheritance tax, as it's known, had the cliff, and you went $1 or you exceeded the cliff and you were taxed on the entire thing. Well, we finally addressed that several years ago, and now the number's up to just north of 1,500,000. I want to thank Dave Chemley for the great work he did in putting together the fiscal note on this. We've seen what other states have done. They are clearly all over the map. Many states have moved to equal the federal exemption. So what this bill seeks to do in graduated fashion is take us from where we are right now at 1,595,156 to be exact. That will come into place on until January 1st, 2022, then it'll be addressed again. But to bring us to 2,500,000 and then bring us to $5 million in 2 years after that. This, I understand and appreciate the concern. I know there'll be folks testifying against it that have been in the past as well, with regards to Has not seen folks in flight because of the inheritance tax, but I can speak to individuals who explicitly said that to me and had moved from Rhode Island to other states. We may have brought some other people in, so the effect of number of people here compared to the number of people who have left has been a net zero. But this is really working about some folks. Are we going to lose money here? Yes, we are. If we look at what we've brought in from an income perspective, we bring in somewhere in the neighborhood, and looking at recent numbers, in the neighborhood of about $50 million. I think that'll vary. There are times when we got some significant income based on some significant estates coming to being inherited. But on average, it's in the $40 to $50 million range. What this bill will seek to do is work to keep people here. So the one thing that we don't do in the fiscal note, we always look at obviously the impact, but on the negative side, on the income side, we'll hopefully keep the high wage earners here that are not necessarily concerned about their estates. And I would suspect, given folks who are beginning to retire, have retired in the last couple of years, that have been at corporations with both a pension and a 401k, we're going to see those folks with some significant amount of savings and income in retirement, both from a 401k perspective and retirement, that is pension that they have, and we want to keep them here. So I think the ability to keep those folks here, as opposed to the flight, because of their concern about when they're deceased and what the tax will be on that at the end. So that's what the bill seeks to do. In summary, is to raise it to ultimately get to $5 million, first to $2,500,000, then $5 million, and at some point we will get to $2,500,000. The way it's going now, over the last, it's going to be a long time to get there, but over the last 5 years or so, we've gone up about $100,000. So, that number of 1.5 million, not quite double what we were, probably in the 80% increase over where we were many years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, I think, 2015, thereabouts when we actually changed it. So, Mr. Chair, 2017. Mr. Chairman, back to you.
Thank you so much, Senator DePalma. Are there any questions or comments from members of the committee?
Yes,
Senator Seveny.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I hadn't heard very much about any sort of flight from the state, because of the estate taxes. I mean, are there some numbers, Senator DePalma? There's not that many people that this affects anyway. How many people? How many people are out there that we?
Good.
How many people are out there that we have lost?
Right now, this number brings in about $50 million a year. I know from folks talking to me, I can't say anecdotally, but I think from personal experience, people have said, I'm leaving. The one place you don't want to die is in Rhode Island. Reason being is because of what the inheritance tax is compared to other states. It's I know we'll have a testimony later that will show that we haven't lost folks, but I could talk to folks who have talked to me and basically said, I'm not staying in Rhode Island after a certain point in time because of the inheritance tax and what it will mean to my family. So. I guess it's I guess the question I would come back to, Senator, you bring up a good point. We should have left it where it was a few years ago. But that they wouldn't. If the reason to change it several years ago wasn't to address and have it indexed by CPI because of flight, because of people not wanting to be here, then that wasn't a reason back then to do it either. So we shouldn't have it continually go up because it's not an issue for folks to. Because right now, pretty soon we'll be double what we were 6 years ago, in the matter of probably 5 or 10 years. I think we'll be double.
Well, the one thing I see with this that might make it, I don't know what's the right word, semi-useful, is that a lot of, what I would call just average income people are sitting on houses that have increased significantly in value. And that can cause some problems where you're house rich and cash poor, and you get yourself into a jam. Like in the old days when a farmer died and wanted to pass 120 acres of farmland over to his family. He had to do a deal with the land trust to get past the all the taxes, including the estate tax, before he could turn over or his family could take over the property. So I understand there are some cases.
I think one other follow-up on that, Chairman, if I may, is this: if we think about the work that we've done over time as it relates to taxing of Social Security, taxing of pensions, and what do? We look at what Massachusetts doesn't tax those. They don't tax government pensions. Same kind of thing. It's the nature of keeping people here as opposed to having them go somewhere else.
Thank you so much, Senator. Senator Acosta.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And so I want to start by saying that we should call this what it is, and it is a tax break for the ultra wealthy. And so to my colleague, Senator 70's point, I'd like to bring in some figures here, because I understand the concern that you have about some middle income earners. But as we disentangle the difference between income and wealth, we should note that the median net worth of the top 20% in 2016 was $1.2 million. That is significantly below the cutoff that we're talking about here. The top 5% was $4.8 million. Now, noting that there is a difference between income and wealth, I'd say that income inequality in this country is deeply entrenched in race, so that the average Black family, even when you control for level of education, makes significantly less than the average white household. This is only exacerbated and perpetuated by wealth inheritance. This is money that you as a person did nothing to earn and are simply getting by virtue of who your parents are. Now, we have a pretty precarious social order in America, where we tell people that regardless of what social class you were born into, you could one day pull yourself up by your bootstraps. But part of how we convince them of that is by saying the playing field is equal. The playing field is not equal if some people get to inherit millions of dollars from their parents while others don't. And so I think we are fanning the fuel and flames of inequality in this country by continuing to give tax breaks to the ultra wealthy. This does not benefit the on average Rhode Islander in any way. This does not benefit 95% of Rhode Islanders in any significant way. This, I think, is actually extremely dangerous at only extending the amount of time that we're going to see racial and class inequality in this country. The purpose of capital in capitalism is to be productive. Wealth that is inherited usually does not do that. This is money that people are sitting on and then just giving down to the next generation. In order to keep innovation and competition going, you need to force people to use their money as capital. The way that you do that is by saying, use it or lose it before you die. You don't just get to give it to your kids who have done nothing to earn it, except by virtue of the fact that they came from you and your partner, or were adopted by you, to be fair, right? And so I think we tag this for what it is, and we must have some more compelling reason than there might be one or two people that leave. Otherwise, how do we look at the other 95% of Rhode Islanders and say, hey, tough luck. These people, they get to just keep passing it down. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Senator Palmer.
So, Senator, I appreciate I'll just say hyperbole and some of the commentary there, but it's about keeping folks in Rhode Island that have the income tax that they will pay to us on an annual basis. So you can't disregard and use the hyperbole with regards to what you're saying this is and what it's not. We have to look at it from the perspective of keeping those folks here because those folks are walking. Some will say they're not. They are. I have constituents that have said that. I know what people who are not constituents that have said that and have moved, not just necessarily from Rhode Island, from other states as well, because of the challenge of what this does. We can disagree on whether we believe it or not. I have folks that have told me that and have done that, and they can say, well, that's not really the reason they left. I want to keep those folks here. I want to get their income tax on an annual basis until we do that analysis on the income tax on an annual basis and the folks that potentially leave compared to what other states have done. Then I think that's part of we'll have a missed part of the equation. We won't have all the factors in the mathematical equation will not have been satisfied because we're not taking that into account.
Mr. Chairman, if I can ask two follow-up questions to that?
Senator Acosta.
So the first is, if we recognize that there's a difference between income and wealth, and that this bill is about wealth, it may very well be the case that the people stay here while they're paying their income taxes and only leave to avoid paying the wealth tax. In which case, we actually are still collecting and not having to worry about this income piece that you're alluding to. So could you address that? And second,
no, no, Senator, we're not collecting. They're leaving. They've left.
Well,
right. So let me finish.
I had two questions, which I opened with. I said I have two questions, and I was going to connect this to the second one, which I think will help address what you're trying to allude to. And that is, you alluded to the data that will be presented that we got from the EPI today that shows that any out-migration has been countered by in-migration that offsets any potential loss by that out-migration. So if it is indeed the case that some people are leaving, but they're already being replaced by other people, then why is this a concern?
Senator Palma, you're on mute. Senator Palma, you're on mute. Senator DePalma, you're on mute.
I was talking to myself, sorry about that. We have to talk about dollars. You have to use the entire context. We can't just use the facts that substantiate an equation of this is what this is. We have to look at the income tax side of the equation. Thank you, Chairman.
Are there any other questions or comments from members of the committee? Senator Seveny?
I'll just make one quick one if I can, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
You know, to some degree, I think Senator Acosta has a point, but let's not lose sight of the fact that all this stuff, whether it's wealth or income, it's all been taxed at some point. Okay? I mean, if you have an expensive house, okay, well, you're paying lots of taxes. Okay? So when it comes time to turn it over to your kids, and guess what? It isn't necessarily, it's not just windfall. You can't just put it in that bucket that, oh, this is windfall. You had nothing to do with it. You're just inheriting it. In many cases, you know, the children, the inheritors, have participated in the generation of that wealth. Okay? So I think everybody has a point here, but let's not lose sight of the fact that we're taxing people several times through these different processes. And that's it. I just wanted to make sure we didn't lose sight of that.
Thank you, Senator Seveny. Are there any other questions or comments from members of the committee? Okay. Hearing none, we do have two individuals who signed up to testify. The first is Jacqueline Goldman in opposition. Jacqueline, welcome to Senate Finance.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm sure that you have lots of people talking, so I will keep it very brief. My name is Jacqueline Goldman, and I am a Providence, Rhode Island citizen, and I oppose this bill. I stand sort of in a similar opinion of Senator Acosta that what this bill does is really just provide a very massive tax exemption to the very wealthiest of people. And I understand that this is the kind of thing that, our legislator loves to do, which is provide tax breaks and to the wealthiest people in our state. But truly, as it's been pointed out, it's not like more people are fleeing the state than coming in. And in a time when we really need to care about revenue generation, and even though this impacts very few people, this is the kind of bill that then sets a dangerous precedent that then says that other sorts of taxes that really apply to the wealthiest people will not apply in the future, and that there's going to be continued exemptions for the wealthiest people in the state. And so I would ask that this bill not pass committee and that instead we oppose it and make sure that people are all contributing to this state. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline. Are there any questions or comments from members of the committee? Hearing none, Jacqueline, thank you so much. Next to testify is going to be Alan Krinsky from the Economic Progress Institute, also in opposition. Alan, welcome to Senate Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the Senate Finance Committee. My name is Alan Krinsky. I'm a senior fiscal analyst, policy analyst at the Economic Progress Institute. So I was just saying the influx of federal relief aid under the American Rescue Plan, one might think Rhode Island no longer has revenue problems, but these are one-time funds designed to help us recover from the public health and economic damage of COVID-19. They're not intended to cover ongoing expenses over the long term. So it's important that we're careful now to preserve revenue going forward. The out-year budget forecast for fiscal years 23 through 26 estimate deficits above $300 million each year. If we weaken the state tax now, we'll be jeopardizing tens of millions of dollars in revenue over the coming years, possibly annually. And we need these revenues to continue to provide the sorts of services that make Rhode Island a great place, the sorts of programs that will build upon the recovery we usher in with the one-time relief assistance. It would be a tragedy to rebound and then 2 or 3 years or 4 years from now face deficits and go into austerity mode with spending cuts and layoffs if we did not preserve important sources of revenue such as the estate tax. And the estate tax affects very few Rhode Islanders, a few hundred estates each year, and many of these are not affected that much. For example, in 2021, an estate valued at $1.6 million will owe under $5,000 in taxes. Despite this relatively modest cost for the wealthiest estates, the combined revenue total from the estate tax is significant. There is some year-to-year variation, but in general, we're talking about $50 million or more annually. And we don't know exactly, well, I haven't seen the fiscal note, but we don't know exactly what the effect would be, but any attempt to raise a threshold to $2.5 or $5 million will cut significantly into these expected revenues, the sort of revenues that provide services that make Rhode Island a wonderful place to live and do business. And finally, I do want to address the issue about people leaving the state over this. And despite, there may be individual cases, but there's simply no evidence on a large level that people make major decisions about where to live, where to build their businesses based upon tax policy, whether a state tax policy or otherwise. And you can see from the chart in my written testimony that looks at the estate tax liability and migration rates in Rhode Island between 1993 and 2018, there's no clear relationship between the two. That the migration rates are consistently low, with net migration rates generally under 1%, and the variation we see doesn't correspond to the estate tax. Indeed, if you can see from the chart that out-migration increased in a couple of years after we last weakened the estate tax in 2015. And clearly that weakening did not have an effect, and weakening it again is not going to have an effect. We're going to continue to see the same low rates of migration both in and out. SB 763 would result in tens of millions of more in foregone revenue, possibly annually. Now is not the time to let down our guard and set ourselves up for greater revenue challenges in the year ahead. I urge you and the committee not to send this bill to the full Senate, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Alan. We appreciate your testimony. Are there any questions or comments from members of the committee? Hearing none, Alan, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That does conclude our testimony.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Palma.
So it's, let me just correct, it's not tens of millions in FY23, it's 10 million or 9.9. One other piece of data for the committee's benefit, of the 5 states that have it, that have an income tax in New England, while Massachusetts is 1 million, and Rhode Island right now is 1.579, Vermont's at 2.75, Maine is at 5 million, and Connecticut is at 5.1 million. So just to let folks know that we're not outliers with regards to our neighbors in close proximity to in the New England area. Like I said, Master's the lowest at $1 million. We've got to take things into context though. So thank you, Chairman.
Thank you so much, Senator. Senator Coleman, do you have a motion?
Motion to hold.
Senator Paul makes a motion to hold, second by Senator Cano. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Chairman Pearson.
Yes.
Senator DePalma.
Yes.
Senator Felag.
Yes.
Senator Acosta.
Yes.
Senator Cano.
Yes.
Senator Seveny.
Yes.
Senator Sosnowski.
Yes.
7 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clerk. Next, we will take up Senate Bill 792, an act relating to taxation, levy, and assessment of local taxes by Senator Archambault. It removes the town of Smithfield from provisions in 44-5-20.05 in the preceding statutes through 44-5-20.08. In regards to property tax classification. This was a local bill that was requested. Senator Archambault is currently in the Judiciary Committee, so unable to be here this evening. We do not have any witnesses signed up to testify, and we're still waiting on a couple things on this. Senator DePalma makes a motion to hold, second by Senator Cano. The clerk, please call the roll.
Chairman Pearson.
Yes.
Senator DePalma.
Yes.
Senator Felag.
Yes.
Senator Acosta.
Yes.
Senator Cano.
Yes.
Senator Seveny.
Yes.
Senator Sosnowski.
Yes.
7 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. That does conclude our agenda for this evening. I want to thank all the members and those who came to testify this evening. Senator DePalma makes a motion to hold. Senator DePalma makes a motion to adjourn. Second by Senator Sosnowski. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Could we reconsider? No.
Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great evening.
See you.
Thank you.